welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, the ABC network, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, an awesome topic, a topic we can never have enough of. It's the discussion about how we can be better and well. And I think that's that. If we're living, we want to be, living a life of, wellness and health and, the vibrant stuff, right? And so my guest today is going to take us through a journey. First thing is her story and how, she had to deal with a lot of things and then, found her wellness. And not only that, she turned everything, in a nice 180 degrees to a better place. And now she's coaching people and helping them get the same vitality in life. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So wellness and health and all the good stuff what we need in life with my guest, Whitney Prude, and she is a practicing board certified clinical pharmacist. So she's a pharmacist and she's also a certified wellness coach through the Mayo Clinic. And I think we'll get more clarification on how that works. She has her own company and the coaching, so CEO of Whole and Happy Living. And yeah, that's plenty right there. And I'm gonna I'm gonna stop, and we're gonna allow Whitney to come on and talk to us a little bit about her story because there is a story there, and I think that story we can benefit from, especially our younger generation who is probably going through that whole initial state of life where you're going through the work and you want to deliver and you want to just go crazy and prove yourself to the world and make a name for yourself in the career path. All that stuff is great, but it comes sometimes with a toll. So we're going to talk about all that stuff with our guest, Whitney. Whitney, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, a true pleasure. And again, I was reading through your stuff. Before we even get into this, the details about your being a pharmacist and all the stuff that you've done later, let's talk about your initial, life and all the things that you've, I guess, gone through. That led you to health, and so on and so forth. So let's go there. I don't want to break, I want to get a little suspense still here, for our
Yeah,
audiences.
for sure. So you want me to start like with my life story of how I got here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a pretty interesting life story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Go
happy
ahead.
to share it. Um, so I mean, I usually, when I tell my story, I usually go back about to my teenage years, right? Like I had starting out, I had a pretty decent childhood, but things kind of got rough at home. And when I was 16 years old, my parents went through what I considered, as a teenager in my life to be a pretty devastating divorce. And at that point, I mean, that was everything that I knew in my life. And so I felt like my whole world had crumbled. My family crumbled. Family relationships felt like they were in complete shambles. And I mean, it was miserable. I was miserable. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I did what most humans do, which was I tried to find a way to survive, right? I tried to, kind of bury the hurt, tried to just find ways where I could keep moving forward. And I remember a pretty distinct time period during my parents' divorce. There was this moment where I was backing out of my driveway and I thought to myself, I'm a teenager. I could completely rebel. I could have it ruin my life or I could overcome it and make something of it. And I remember very distinctly making the decision that I wasn't going to use this as an excuse to make poor choices. And so I distinctly remember that moment in my life of like, no, I'm going to stay true to myself and I'm going to reach my dreams. And so that was the moment for me where I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to become super focused on becoming a pharmacist. That was my dream. And so I dedicated absolutely everything to it. I was an overachiever. Just hands down. That's how I was. And I worked incredibly hard. I was working 3 jobs to earn money. And then when I got into pharmacy school, it was incredibly exhausting, and really actually ended up pushing me past my limits of being able to cope. Right. So I was hiding a lot of things. I was covering a lot of things up. And if you asked me at that point in my life, I would have told you it was like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Right. It's like when everything's on fire in the background, those memes where it's like, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. And then it's like everything's up in flames. But I legitimately thought that I was fine. And towards the end of my first year in pharmacy school, I remember one moment really, really vividly where I had been sitting through 8 hours of work, of class actually, and I got home. I was completely exhausted, and at this point in pharmacy school, I was in zombie mode. It was like it had pushed me beyond anything, that I had experienced before. And I just remember I walked down into my room, one evening, and I just crumbled. I just crumbled to the floor. And I laid there. I don't know how long I was on the floor, but I just laid there and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And that was really the first time in my life where I was really willing to accept, like, okay, like I'm actually not okay. Right? Like I've done a good job at covering things up, but I'm really not okay. So I accepted the fact that, it's like I needed to get help. I needed to, go to therapy. I started reading every self-help book that I could get my hands on. I just wanted to learn and figure out why I was so miserable and why I was so exhausted, so overwhelmed. And I realized that like pharmacy had pushed me to my limits of what I could cover up and what I could handle. But it really wasn't pharmacy that was causing my meltdown. Like my meltdown was, the broken relationships, all of the conflict in my family, all of the, feeling abandoned, abandoning myself. It just so many things that were so unhealthy in my life. And I no longer had the capacity to cover it up. Now, fortunately for me, I was able to get through pharmacy school, right? I survived, and I felt like I really had worked through a lot of things. I felt like, okay, finally, I got my dream job as a pharmacist at the Mayo Clinic, and I was like, hey, I finally, like, I made it, right? Like, I'm here. And just as soon as I felt like everything was finally good to go and I could live life, it was only 9 months into my job as a pharmacist that I started to get this pain in both of my wrists. And within 2 weeks, I could no longer do my job. I couldn't use a computer anymore. So I thought, hey, you know what? Like, I'll let them rest. Like, let my wrists rest, let them heal. And, everything, everything will be fine. Everything will be back to normal. And what ended up happening was I ended up being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And within 2 months, I was severely fatigued, weak. I was in an incredible amount of pain. And I ended up in a rheumatologist office where, I finally realized at that moment that my life was never going to be the same. It just wasn't. I wasn't going to have the physical capabilities that I had always had. And my career would never be what I wanted it to be. So I was a 28-year-old. I was nearly bedridden. I had a $200,000 student loan hanging over my head. And I'm like, what in the world am I going to do now? So that's where I just started, I started searching for, what would I do next? If I can't be a pharmacist, what would I be? And that's where I came upon, public speaking and coaching. And while I was sick and in bed, I would spend, all day and all night in bed. I couldn't hardly do anything. I could maybe just shower in a day. Like I literally had no energy. And so I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to start building a program, building a business where I can help people to avoid a question that goes over and over again in my head. And that question is, what if I had lived differently then? How would my life be different now?
So Whitney, let's hold now.
Yeah.
Because I think this is like we're gonna do like the suspense like part one, part two, right? So this will be
Sure.
like, so just listen to your story, and that's why I introduced the idea that your story, we need to hear it because uh divorce today is a high number. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. I mean, it's many couples, get divorced. I think statistics are like in the 70%, mark, right? It's a pretty high, and most of these folks, probably have children at any given age. And so
Yep.
this is not just your story. It's a story of many, and people deal with it different ways, and they can have, serious after effect, with aftermath, right? Things can be not really the best outcomes. It depends on how people, take it, right? And some people
Yep.
take it a lot more, seriously than others. But at the end of the day, there is an impact no matter what. And psychologically speaking, there is. Mentally speaking, it does have an impact. Even when you try to make it work and the parents, try to fix it, there's still some sort of a stain that stays there. And depends on the individual, child, things can, go one way or the other. Some people go to addiction, some people go to drugs, some people live and that's it. They go to crime. I mean, it could be literally that different, that bad. Or it can be, in your case, I'm just gonna go like super, build myself and just kind of like, blank everything out and just do what I gotta do and become this super, person, because I don't want to think. And the reason typically we do that, and we're supposed to do that, or at least our mind says let's do that, is usually just to kind of drown ourselves into something else and just kind of basically never think about the stuff. We just focus on what that's ahead of us. So you set a big goal and you go for it, and that tends to help, to a degree. But we overdo things, which is typical for us as humans. When we try to avoid something, we'll do everything opposite not to get there. But then we might just overdo things, and everything that is an extreme usually is not a good thing. I mean, any type of extremism, for anything in life is bad. If we drink too much, we eat too much, we do things, we dance too much, I don't know, whatever we do, work out too much, everything can have an impact on our lives, and probably not in a good way if we go it to the extreme. So you want to have everything moderate in the right, balances. But you did it. And pharmacy, as you said, it's not a picnic. I mean, you go to med school, pharmacy school. I mean, you got to put in the time, the effort, the energy. I mean, it's not easy to become one pharmacist. And I mean, I mean, for me, just personally, I admire pharmacists. Just the fact that you learn all those molecules and how they work and the interactions and this and the other. I mean, it takes a toll. I mean, your mind is really just like, you're looking like formulas in your brain. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I know it becomes easy like everything else. If you practice enough, it becomes you, but nevertheless, it goes through a lot of things. Plus you have the stress of you gotta put through the school. The school system is expensive. You said it, 200,000, in debt already. And that's actually a story again for the majority of us, at least in the States. That's really the reality of things. You go to college, a 4-year degree, you're looking at a couple 100,000, if not more. Depends on where you go, right? And
Yep.
so that's, even at the cheapest, you probably hit at least a 50,000. I mean, I'm talking about like you go to bare minimum and still going to be an expensive, piece. So you're coming out already with that. Now you're talking about you've overexpended yourself, but you're right. Now you are a year in, you're doing all this, you're pushing yourself too much, too hard. And,
Yep.
because again, you're trying to just distance yourself from everything that's happening. You don't want to know here, but you are doing everything that you can to camouflage that. But we all do that. Actually, I can speak to it myself. When we get overwhelmed and stressed, we try to find something to kind of take our attention away from that, for whatever stressing us out. And sometimes, we keep pushing and try like, that nothing's going on. I'm good. As you said, I'm good. I'm good. Only to know that we're not really good, because typically we don't talk about it. And I think I would say myself, like a lot of things you keep to yourself. You don't want to share with anyone. What goes on here, it stays here. And you're like, I can figure this out. I can figure this out. Now, of course, we have different thresholds. Everybody has a different limit. And at a certain point, again, boiling water, it's kind of bursts out, and you're going to have that degree, where everything goes, to combustion. And that's it. And that's exactly what happens. We just blow a fuse. and now it's bad. And in your case, it was emotional. You had gone through this stuff. But you were very clever and smart that you realized, like, you know what? I am not okay. This is not okay. And you decided to take care of yourself by finding a resource, help, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, a lot of people sometimes they don't do that. They just keep it themselves, and then they find an out that is not necessarily a good out, drugs. And literally, there's a show that just posted, about suicide, for example, right? People tend to go to that extreme. They're in pain. They just can't deal with it anymore. I mean, as my guest said, they want to stop the pain. And sometimes the only way you think you're going to stop pain is just by ending it all. And so not a good outcome. And help is always available. The problem, not everybody wants to seek help. Again, it's like, oh, what are people going to think about? We all think about that, right? We all like have this what are people thinking right now? You and I talking, someone's going to watch this show like, they're talking, and they're going to criticize whatever. I mean, it's a cool thing. I mean, people unfortunately have opinions, and they're going to have opinions for
Yep.
eternity as long as they exist. But the thing is, we worry too much about that. And as we do, we sometimes prevent ourselves from getting better because we're thinking about the taboos and the stigmas and so on and so forth, which is a bad thing. And we shouldn't. So, again, for audiences, the reason I'm recapping this is because you're not alone in this world that you're going through, or you've gone through, or you'll be, or ever going to go through. There will be people currently and in the future that will be going through the stuff. There are people that have been going through the same stuff. Sometimes listening to a story like yours can at least wake them up and give them a little bit like, hey, listen, it's got to be okay. We can do better. There is a way out. I can succeed. There is no reason. And the question where we're going to start our part two is, had I lived my life different? Have I done it differently? Could have been a better, person, a better health, and maybe avoided all this autoimmune, for example, in your case, which, by the way,
Yep.
again, you push the body to a limit, the body is going to go out of whack and it's going to start fighting its own self. That's in the case what's happening. I mean, autoimmune
Right.
systems, your system is just like overdrawing on its own, and it's going to like really become bad. And it's going to affect somehow, somewhere, your mind, your physical abilities, and so on and so forth. Now, here you go. You had spent all that money, you put in all this time, and now what? Your career is pretty much a done deal because you can't do the work that you were supposed to be doing. Now, is
Yep.
that something we want? No, nobody wants that. And that I actually say this to people all the time, including my own family. You know, we all go through things. I've gone through things. I'm going through things. Anytime there's always something going on in our lives, right? But I always say this: how good and what good will I do if something happens to me? If I drive myself nuts about things that I have no control over, and or things that happen beyond my world, my realm, my abilities, my control, well, I'm just going to dwell on things, and I'm going to affect myself, and then I'm not going to be good to anyone, to myself and to my family. And that's actually what keeps me always motivated and going no matter what happens in my life. A lot of people think like, yeah, dude, you're crazy. I'm not. I'm just a human like everybody else, but I do use this. Like, and believe it or not, mental health to me is very important, and as it should be for all of us watching and listening right now, right? We, if we take care of this, the body, we got to take just as much, if not more, on our mental state, because that's actually everything else. You drive everything from your mental. If your mental is not in a place, you will affect the body one way or the other, and it could be bad, and it could be sometimes irreversible. We don't want to go there. But so what I do is I always think positive. I try to think that if I can't control it, there's nothing I can do it. And there's always tomorrow, and nobody knows what tomorrow holds. But I want to live to see a better tomorrow. I want to live healthier to be tomorrow. Because if you're not healthy, again, we hear health is wealth. I mean, this is the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio. Your health is everything, folks. If you don't take care of yourself, and yes, you might have people, and even people that care about you, that love you, eventually they're going to get tired of helping you, at a point or another. And you're going to wind up a lot of times by yourself, not in a good place, because they're going to get tired too. Life is going to draw everybody around you. Even your kids sometimes will be away from you. There's nothing they can do. Your family, your parents may not always be there for you. So you have to take care of number one. And this is self-care, not selfish, concept. Again, we did a show just to differentiate about these things. Being you is okay. Taking care of you is always a good thing for other people. So I wanted just to go through this because I believe that your story can really enlighten some people, and wherever they are, and sometimes even if it's not them, I always say this: if it's not you, there's someone you might know. If you think they're going through tough times, reach out. Maybe there's something going on, and they may not show it. Not everybody. Some of us have very good poker faces, and we can really camouflage the whole thing. And I'm cool, and we show that we're the happiest people. And again, true facts. If you look at the statistics in suicide, the people that are making or like really taking their lives, you can never tell. I mean, there might be signs, but you start looking at the signs way after the fact. When it happens, like, oh, maybe that was it. But for the most part, you're not. I mean, we know actors, that were like the best smiley comedian, laughing people. Robin Williams is a good example. I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't know him? He was the happiest guy you can watch and enjoy watching. And again, you would think like it would never happen, but it did. But we don't know. People don't know what happened to him or anybody else for that matter. So it is important for us to be just clear that if you're going through something, talk to people, seek help, find out what else is you as a coach. And that's going to take us to the story. The next part of this show is how you were able to manage and switch things around and answer the question that you had yourself and help now other people find the solution and the answers to it. So now let's talk about that transition. You're in bed, home, basically just not being able to do much. What I like about what you did is not you didn't give up on yourself. See, that's another thing. Never give up. It's a bad situation. What's the deal here? I got to do the best I can. And you did. So you thought about an alternative. Giving up was not an option because if you did, what would be the outcome? It's just not going to help you, right? So you
Right.
looked at it like, what can I do? So now let's talk about that. You decided to get that answered and figure out a way to do it for yourself and others. Let's talk
Yeah.
about through that journey because that's a whole game changer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It was a game changer for me, but wasn't easy. I mean, when you're extremely fatigued, it's almost like a feeling of like when you have a cold and it's on like your absolute worst day, you wake up in the morning and you realize like you get out of bed and you're so sick and so fatigued. It's like you just realize then like I can't go to work. You have to like lay right back down. Like the extreme fatigue that just never goes away. There's nothing you can do to get it to go away, right? And so, I mean, that's how I felt every minute of every day. And I just slowly started chipping away of like, how do I, like, what are my next steps? How do I start creating something, for my family, for my future? I don't want to be on disability for the rest of my life. I don't want to depend on, whatever. Like if I can never work as a pharmacist again and I'm on workers' comp or disability or whatever, like I didn't want that to be my life. I didn't want to always depend on, is somebody else going to take care of me or are they going to tell me that I don't have any money this month? Um, and so basically what I did is, so I started a business. I started going to Toastmasters. I started really like fine tuning my speaking skills and learning how to be up in front of people. I thought initially, I was like, I want to be a speaker. And then I came across coaching. And the cool thing about that I realized with coaching is I realized I had been coaching my whole life. I've been coaching friends, family, anyone that I could. I always was helping people with their life and to figure their life out. And I always would tell people, you don't have to be miserable. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You do not have to be miserable. There's always a way to find happiness, find fulfillment in every situation. And so I then, so I got into coaching and got my certifications and that sort of thing. And basically what I did at that point is I started to build out this program that took it took my medical knowledge and, it's like my nutrition knowledge and it took my coaching knowledge and coaching psychology. And then, going to therapy and all of my years of all of the self-help books that I had read. And then the journey that I went on is like my own mental health journey. And I took all of this stuff, all of this knowledge, all of this information, and I put it together into a 16-week program so that I could take people on a journey that took me 7 years. I could take them on that journey in 4 months. And that became my program.
And that is whole and happy living. I mean, I just the title of, I mean, I guess the business itself, is so comprehensive. I mean, whole and happy. I mean,
Yep.
you have to have all those things. You got to be whole and live a happier life. I mean, at the end of the day, we live for a period of time. If you spend most of it not happy, I mean, you're just not enjoying this time in this world, right? So,
Right.
but transit into that is usually a difficult task. And in your world, I mean, business wise, I mean, going through the stuff, you had your career, and I think that's another thing that I didn't touch on, but you had literally landed one of the best roles you can have in the world of pharmacists. I mean, plus the Mayo Clinic. I mean, everybody knows what that is. It's a huge. I mean, I use them as a resource personally, and there's plenty of stuff there and a lot of research and a lot of stuff. And being there, it's like you making a difference as it is. But now all of a sudden, again, the mental toll, just thinking that it's over, I can't do more, this is done for me, it can just be so devastating, right? And by the way, again, that's the other thing. As much as that was your dream, that was your target, that was your goal, and you achieved it, and all this change, you still use all that knowledge. You figured out a way to take what you could and still make it. I mean, you made what do you call it? One of those ships, like boats, like safety nets, boats, whatever, out of literally a disaster, and made it work as I mean, what do they call it? Lifesavers, whatever those things.
Lifeboat, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, lifeboats. And so you turn that into something that can be used, and not only just used, reused by others as a template. And it makes a huge difference. And you do, like you said, I love what you said, that you've done this before. I mean, coaching. And that's the thing. Most of us coach all the time. As a matter of fact, I mentioned opinions. Most of the opinions are always like, hey, well, what, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, grab anybody in the street and start having a discussion and tell them you have a situation. Everybody's going to give you an advice, an opinion of some sort. So they kind of coaching you without even knowing. I mean, they try to coach you into something, right? And that's the thing. Like, we all do that, and we do it with our friends, we do it with our family, and even your parents. Sometimes you coach them and you talk to them like, "Hey, Dad, Mom, you can do it." So it's part of who we are, but it's just like refining fine tuning these things and making them a good practice where you can do and make a difference. Now, question to you: the mental health, was the real root cause of, well, it's not the root cause. That's the after, effect of, the family matter, right?
Yep.
But that impact itself was enough to almost destroy your life. So what would you tell people today, through the coaching program or just in person, what would be some advice that someone has right now to take from this show, that I would not do this, based on your story?
I mean, I think the bottom line is that we have to take care of ourselves. And, when I take people through my program, I didn't realize that that's what I was creating, but I was creating a program where people essentially find themselves and they learn how to prioritize themselves and show up for themselves. I mean, when it feels like your whole world's crumbling and that there's nobody there, you're all alone. Nobody's showing up for you anymore, right? And you keep trying to show up for other people, and you keep trying to, get people to notice you or be grateful for you or whatever, so that you can feel like you're worth something, right? What the ultimate goal is how do we actually find that worth inside of us? How do we get that to come from deep down inside, so that we can actually be the ones to emotionally show up, be the ones to actually meet our own emotional needs, to love ourselves, right? And to realize that it's not selfish to take care of ourselves, to take care of our own health. Why should we take care of everyone else and forget about ourselves? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why do we value everyone else more than we value ourselves, right? And it's because we're trying to feel like we're worth something. So really, the process and the journey that I take people on is finding themselves, finding their true selves, and then defining what they want their life to be. We can actually control all of it. Now, there are things, so I can't change my health, right? I can't make my autoimmune disease go away. But I'm still in control of the fact that, like, I can create a business. I can create an income. I can be happy. I can find ways, even though I can't walk very far. I can't do any of my hobbies. I'm in a wheelchair a lot of the times. I have a handicap pass, all of those things, right? I can't change those, and I can accept those, right? But there are still a lot of things that are in my control. I can choose to lay in bed and do absolutely nothing with my life and be depressed. I can choose that. And I can also choose to show up for myself and to show up for my family and to make the most of the life that I have. And so, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. Like, genuinely, people that go through challenges and they overcome things, right? And then they push and try to make something of their life. Oftentimes, those are the most inspiring people. They're the people that we look up to. They're the people that are pulling us through, right? I mean, I look at a role model for me of, when I was sick and I was starting a business and I was like, aren't there some celebrities that are like sick or whatever? And so I started looking into Lady Gaga, and that started to become, one of those polling inspirational people that's like, you can still do this when you have a chronic illness. Like, you can still fight, you can still put in the effort, you can still be successful, you can still have a successful life. There are always things that are in your control, but we have to be willing to realize how much we're worth and keep fighting for it.
Well, first things first, we are priceless. You are priceless. And that's you, everybody that's watching and listening, no matter what people say, no matter what people think, no matter what people try to convey, know this, you are, there's no price to any one of us out there. You cannot put a tag number. I mean, yes, humanly speaking, you could, but in reality, that's not the case. And it's really what you put your worth as yourself as well. You set your own, literally unlimited or infinite price, if you want to call it that way. But I love what you said, that you have role models and inspirational stories, out there. You mentioned Lady Gaga. I have to say, you are an inspiration yourself to many, because you said it. You could have chosen the path of, nothing doing, just sitting and relaxing and, just kind of just let life, disappear from your life. Literally, I mean, just kind of like just be not effective for what, for you or anybody else. But he didn't do that. It's the mindset shift. In your case, you chose, no, I can do it. And even if you were not sure, you looked at somebody else that is in a similar condition, that is making it through, and therefore you have, if one person can do it, I can do it. And that's another good example for anyone. Just know this, whatever you put in mind in, if someone else is, one person is doing something, there's a good chance you can do it. You can learn. I mean, we cannot, like, you're a pharmacist. Obviously, I'm not a pharmacist, but if I wanted to go to pharmacy and I'm able to actually go to pay for it and stuff, I mean, 4 years later, 5 years later, whatever it takes, I can still do it. I mean, again, there's different limitations sometimes, but the concept is that you can learn some stuff in life, any given point. So just don't give up on yourself. That's really, I mean, I love what you said. You don't give up, because that's really where people go to the extreme end and they collapse, and then, outcomes are not really happy there. You want to look at it. And listen, even you said, I have a wheelchair, spend most of the time, I can't change that's the other thing. You came in terms with the reality of certain things, and you know that those are not controllables, but everything else is. So you kind of basically remove the bad ones out of the way. And I think a lot of people make the mistakes of really, like, that's where the focus is, like all the stuff that I cannot control versus the things that I can control. And yet, when you did that, you'll find that there's plenty out there that you can still do, that you can make up. And you make adjustments. And by the way, it's easier said than done. Yeah, someone can say, like, well, Hurricane, what do you know about this stuff? Well, believe me, sometimes it's health, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's family. There's different types of misery that we can all go through at any given point. And it's how we deal with it. You may not know what I'm going through right now. I may not know anybody that's listening and watching what they're going through. But I can tell you, the one thing that is the common denominator for all of us, we're going through something. And there is something bad in our lives at any given moment. It's life is just what it is. It's never going to be peachy, folks. It's never going to be just like a nice, cozy, flat, what do you call it? Like surface of water. It's going to have ripples. It's going to have waves. It's going to have, massive, tsunamis that come through. If you think about just the sea, it can be super calm. I've actually I cruise a lot, and I've seen all the different levels of that sea, where it's literally a mirror, where it's a little choppy, and where it's really like, wavy, like, oh my God. And you know what? That's life. We're going to have a little bit of those. And any given moment, things can change. You can be today happy, and tomorrow life is going to throw you some nice little punches. And it's how you're going to deal with them. Do you take the lesson and learn and make, something out of it? I mean, we have that saying, if life throws lemons at you, make lemonade, whatever.
Yep.
But really, that works. That concept is as simple as that, but it does. I mean, you are not only giving, first of all, I thank you, because you're pumping me literally personally, because it's amazing to hear that. And that's the other thing, like, I admire people who actually give the ability, give the opportunity to share their life stories with the world, because they know that they can make a difference in somebody's life. As you said, someone doesn't have to go 7 years and many years. through what you have gone. And that's the other thing. Like, why would someone like? 'Cause there are people that can say, you know what, I went through it, let them burn. I mean, we have there's some level of that mentality, but that doesn't give you the same satisfaction if you say, you know what, I can help someone not go through what I went through because I know how bad it is. And frankly, a lot of people who go through hardship sometimes they do things because they don't want other people to go through the same hardship. It's almost like a reaction to like if only someone told me not to do XYZ, you know, and now it's my turn. Let me tell someone not to do XYZ. Hopefully I can make some impact. And that's a big difference in how we operate in life. So again, for me, to you, and to the world, thank you for doing the work you do and for really, yes, by the way, someone said, well, you created a business. Okay. Well, you got to live somehow. You got to survive. I mean, there's no shame in the game of making money, folks. It's legit. It's a good thing. And it's fulfilling because it's not only just generating revenue, it's generating satisfaction. You're helping people. In any business, if you can do these two things, help plenty and get something out of it and help yourself in the same way. I use this in sales trainings all the time. Let's help, how many people I'm going to help today to help me? Because that's,
Exactly.
if you help people, you're going to help yourself by default. You don't even have to think about it, right? In the business world. But that's the thing. You got to have something of value. And that makes a difference. So thank you for that. So again, by the way, I did not know Lady Gaga had any health issues. So this is news to me. But there you go. So like I would have never thought, you see, that
Right.
her, specifically her as an example, that's not something I would have thought about. That shows that someone can literally do a good job, and no matter what they're going through, they can still make it happen. And that's awesome. And I love what like you were able to find someone that is literally up there and is doing well for themselves, regardless of their conditions, whatever they may be going through. So thank you. Now, the Mayo Clinic. I just wanted to touch on that. How was that
Yep.
experience?
It was awesome. Honestly. I mean, I only have good things to say. It's an incredible organization. And I mean, there's always, it's like you can get a job anywhere and you can always find things to complain about, right? Or you can say, oh, it's such a big organization that it's so hard to make changes because it has to go through so many levels. But I mean, the reality is that Mayo has so many resources and they're so focused on taking care of their employees. So I mean, a big thing that I will always be incredibly grateful for is that as I went through, my health issues and had the disability, they never fought anything once. It's like if I needed anything, if I needed accommodations, they would get me whatever I needed. I needed a scooter to get around the hospital. They got me a scooter. They never once, questioned like, was this actually a work injury? Is this an underlying condition? They just took care of me. And it's an incredible institution. There's always things you can find to complain about, but looking at the whole of how they function, how they try to function, how they try to take care of their employees, and just their values, and it's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, and I again, like I said, I mean, I use them as a resource. I know they're one of the bigger, sought, institutions for like research and all the stuff. And you get a lot of stuff from them, in terms of you
Yep.
just have to Google things. If you're looking for a disease, an illness, or, some sort of stuff, there's probably an article that's going to have some value there that you can read. And
Yep.
so yeah, well, I mean, it's all, but it's beautiful to hear that they took care of you, and they did not dismiss you like you were just, nobody. They really, helped you through the tough times. So you had a health condition, which is difficult. I think you said it's still there, but you've managed through it. So
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you've done changes in life that helped you a little bit, maneuver better? Because you said you could not even move your hands. I'm sure things have changed since then, but there
Yep.
are things that you've, changed, whether it's physical therapy, whether it's nutrition, all the things that you can, share with us for people. Because again, it may not be applicable to everyone, but the concept of it is always going to be the same. Because I think nutrition and healthy habits and healthy behaviors will always be good for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, there are a few things for me, that I've found that have been very helpful. When I first was very, very sick and in a lot of pain, I would get a massage every other week. I just had to for my muscles, and everything was so tight. Now I get one once a month, and that's the non-negotiable. Like I have to have that every month to just be able to keep going and not to have to not have a flare. Another thing for me that's a non-negotiable is I actually have to have 10 hours of sleep in order to not be sick throughout the day. So, yeah, I was working part-time as a pharmacist, and I was working full-time in my business, probably more than full-time in my business, right? It's like I'm working a lot, but it's a non-negotiable, right? 10 hours of sleep. That's it. It's never gets sacrificed. Otherwise, I can't do what I need to do. The other thing for me, I mean, I really can't exercise, right? So I can't walk very far. I can't stand very long. So I can't do a ton in form of exercise, but I do try to keep my stress low. And then my nutrition is another thing. It's like I eat very healthy. And I have to be careful too, because when you're not moving, like I'm not moving all day long, I could gain weight very, very easily. And so I have to be very careful with my nutrition, and not just like my calorie intake, but being careful with it's like making sure that my body gets the nutrients that it needs, because otherwise, if I don't, I do feel sick. So a lot of times, like, people can eat whatever they want and they don't see immediate, repercussions of that decision. It doesn't work like that for me, right? If I don't sleep, I'm sick. If I don't eat healthy, I'm sick. So it's almost like I don't have a choice. I always have a choice, right? I can be sick or I can take care of myself. And at this point, obviously, I choose to take care of myself so that I can still show up for the things that I want to do. There is the caveat of, like, as I've gotten coaching and stuff to do my business, yeah, other people have grown their businesses much faster than me. I've had to be really patient because I can't do the same things that I could have done before, right? I don't have the same energy. I don't have those same abilities. And so I had to be really, really patient and understanding with myself of, like, hey, yeah, I know that, maybe they're getting there twice as fast as I am. But I just, slow and steady. I just had to be consistent, had to be patient with myself, with my condition, and just make sure that I'm taking care of me as number one, and trusting that if I give what I can each day, like, it's going to amount to something.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff you just covered there, because you're right. I mean, you have some choices and you have to be careful on how things, because you're right. You may not operate the same way as everybody else. By the way, like you said, I love what you said. Not everybody may not deal with the same things, and sometimes you may take a different time frame for them to have a reaction for whatever behaviors they have. In your case, you can't afford that. You have to be very, tight with everything, your schedule, the way you do it, and to maintain the vitality, and that's it. Now, so that leads me to one question. Yeah, I know they diagnosed you with autoimmune, but did they tell you, like, is there a specific source, things that actually, I mean, was it just the mental stress, or was there like something else that kind of mutated or made the difference that created this autoimmune? Because I hear this all the time. I got diagnosed with autoimmune, but I never hear, like, well, what was the cause for
Why?
it? Yeah, why exactly? Is that just? I mean, I'm curious, because many people, that they're like, I mean, it can happen to any one of us. Basically, that's all there is. And so,
Yep.
so we need to know, like, what are some of the triggers that potentially we can avoid. And I guess in your coaching, there's some discussion in that, and we can go there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, there's a couple of different components. It is genetic in my family. So my grandma has something very similar to me, a combination of, like, rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. My aunt has lupus. My cousin has rheumatoid, or has psoriatic arthritis. So it's very there is a genetic component, right? It obviously runs in my family. There is the question, though, of, if I didn't have all of this mental stress, and if I wasn't overachieving and overdoing it to the extreme, would my body have actually ended up imploding, whatever you want to say. Like, would it actually have happened to me? Right. I'll never know the answer to that question. And I try not to dwell on it, right? It doesn't do me a whole lot of good, but I'm sure there was some components, because I know that as I was going through pharmacy school, there were things that I was dealing with, and like things that would come up where it's like, what is actually happening? But the stress was so extreme, that it's like, I know it was taking a toll on my body. Is that what triggered the autoimmune disease, or would it have happened anyways because of my genetics? I'll never know the answer to that question, right? So was it stress? Probably was a component. Is it genetics? Yes, there is a genetic component.
So in essence, I mean, the work that you do today is to really prevent any of the triggers and stressors in the first place, regardless of whether you're predisposed or not. If we can just do some basic things in life, we might be able to cope, through things and have less of, a potential, I guess, flare in this case that can be,
Absolutely.
detrimental. Yeah.
Yep.
So your program, you said it's a few weeks. How does that work if someone joins the program, and who are the clients?
Yeah. So with the program, how it works is it's 16 weeks long. And there's a couple of different things that I'm really passionate about. A lot of times when people are like, hey, I need to improve my health, or like it's like I'm pre-diabetic, or my cholesterol, or my blood pressure is high, all of those things, it's usually because someone's gaining weight, right? So for me, like, I wasn't gaining weight, I ended up with an autoimmune disease, but the principle is the same, right? There are things going on internally, and in due time, it's going to manifest itself somehow in our physical health. Within my program, a lot of what we do is I try to help people to, number one, get the weight off, right? It's like, we're going to improve their health significantly if we can get the weight off. But the problem is that most people get stuck in this cycle. A lot of times food is their coping mechanism. And so even if they do any of these diets that are out there in the world, right, that is like a quick fix, they can lose the weight. But because of the mental and emotional component, because they're always going back to food as a coping mechanism, right, they're always circling back. It's always going to bring you back. Whatever internally is driving your behaviors, your actions, and your decisions, you're always going to come back right where you are. So what we do in the program, yes, we do help people lose weight. Yes, we do help with the nutrition and help, the exercise, and give a lot of coaching to keep people on track. But there's two components that help people to really transform their lifestyle that can last long term. And that's one, overcoming the mental and emotional barriers. Why are you where you are in the first place? What is it that's causing these things? Is it from your childhood? Is it a past relationship you were in? Is it, the way that your parents treated you, or you have low self-worth and you're just trying to accomplish something in the world, so you're always putting yourself on the back burner? There's a million reasons of why we develop certain things that we do and the coping mechanisms that we do. But the reality is that if someone wants to get healthy and food is their coping mechanism, and they want to lose weight, they're never going to be able to keep it off unless they first address the underlying root cause of why they've gotten there in the first place. And that's what we focus on. We help people to overcome that aspect. We give them all the education that they need to be able to maintain this long term. And then we help them through the weight loss process.
That's something, I mean, literally, you hit it right there. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. It just keeps going. Once you're in that, you keep, going back to the same thing. Like, it's easier for me. I just gonna binge, and it gives me a little nice satisfaction, but it's temporary. And then I have to deal with the nonsense that comes with it. But you're right. If you can eliminate why you're even doing that in the first place, you can do it. And, this goes to that where you discovered your situation and you had that collapse. You started literally like, it's okay, let me ask, let me figure it out. And that, I mean, unfortunately, I think at that point your body is already starting to get, attacked, on its own, right? I mean, attacking its own. At that point, it probably, maybe that was, you didn't see it then, but I think that was already like a point of no return internally, that it was already triggered. Like, it's like a chain reaction that is just, happening until it's just gonna boom. And now you have the whole aftermath or after effect. But I think for a lot of us, that watching right now, listening, your advice is really, hey, listen, there is a way to do this. Let's clear all the bad stuff out and make sure that all the little things that you use to cope with them are not even necessary. Because if you can eliminate that, there is no reason to worry about them. And therefore, you're going to live a happier and healthier life. I mean, again, there's always a risk. I mean, as you said, things could be genetic and they can stop, but can you potentially reduce the risk? Can you potentially, even eliminate even the outcome if that's possible? You can. Now we don't know that, but as you said, we just got to do the work, and that's all there is. If someone is, and that's my other part of the question is like, who are the clients? I mean, could be anybody, as you said, diabetes, can be anybody going through some sort of emotional, predicament, correct?
Yep, absolutely. And that's, I always at the end of my program, when I have a client that finishes the program, I always ask them the question because I'm always curious, who would you say this program is for? Because I have my idea of like who I think it's for, and like who I'm trying to bring into the program. But I always ask them, who do you think this program's for, and why? And it's pretty interesting because at the end of the program, their answer, and this is consistently all of the video testimonials I have, the answer is always, it's for everyone. And
I was going to say that.
and the reality is, it's like whether you have, 5 pounds you want to lose or 150 pounds you want to lose, that becomes pretty insignificant to people by the end of the program, because once they really get into the mental and emotional stuff, it really starts to become, when they start to see the real transformation in their lives, they start to see this burden be lifted off of them. They start to feel so strong internally, and they're in control of themselves, their lives, their surroundings, right? The number on the scale all of a sudden becomes pretty insignificant. And so who is the program for? Well, technically it's for everyone. Who are the people that really, really are drawn to my program? A lot of times it's women, 30s to 50s, right, who are really struggling with weight and are on this kind of yo-yo cycle. And the reason is because they have a lot of the mental and emotional things in the background that have gotten them stuck. And that's why they can't get out. And it's why none of these weight loss options are doing any good, right? Even if someone goes for bypass surgery, right? You can get bypass surgery, but if you don't fix the reason that you're eating so much food, or that you have the habits that you have, eventually you're going to end up right back in the same place. And now you just have mangled your stomach, right? So it really can be for everyone, because that transformation is so valuable, right? But the people that it draws in is usually those women who are cycling and yo-yoing, and just can't get unstuck. And that's what we do. We really help them to get unstuck and find a true, lasting transformational change.
Well, thank you. And it's amazing. You mentioned more about the food and the diets, but only you mentioned nutrition only when we talked about your own, thing. But you're right. In general, people do have the food systems, that they use to kind of get rid of, like, listen, you're stressed, you watch Netflix and you just kind of like munch on for hours, and like you're upset, you just start stuffing food, but you don't care about the quality and the nutrients in there, and that's exactly why you wind up in a very rapid increase of. You're right. You can always get a quick fix for a program that's going to drop your weight, instantly, or at least in no time, or you can get those, different diets, but they're not consistent. And by the way, I've had so many shows about nutrition. As a matter of fact, there's one that's coming out this week, and it's the same thing. It's, you want to live a consistent, life. If you go up and down, up and down, up and down, especially when it comes to food and diet, and that it's not going to help, anybody. And that's why people really, sometimes you get tired of it, and then that's it, you give up. Again, we get to that point where, like, I'm tired of all this. Whatever happens, happens. But you don't want that. You never want whatever happens, happens to be the answer, because when it gets to the worst scenario, you're going to wish that it didn't happen, and it will be maybe too late at that point, or more difficult to go back. while you
Exactly.
can. It's like you
Yep.
got to do it while you can.
Yep.
Wow. Well, so now the program isn't extensive. Now, is that a one-on-one? Do you have sessions? How does that work?
So my preference is always one-on-one. And the reason being is because we do the mental and emotional piece. So I do have a group option, and we do small groups um to make it more affordable. Like if somebody can't afford it, it's like very tight financially, like I still want to be able to help them. But the reason that I really am very passionate about either doing small groups or doing one-on-one is because with the mental and emotional piece, it takes a bit of work to really dive in and to figure out what is actually the root cause, and how, what do we need to start doing in our lives, and what tools and resources do we need to use to actually be able to overcome these and to work through them. And the mental and emotional journey is tough, right? It's not easy. And sometimes people are too scared to even touch it. They're like, I'm not doing this because I'm not going there. Like, I don't want to know what's inside, right? And to each their own. But that's why we do the one-on-one, is because it really does. It takes a little bit more. We're really digging, and then we're showing up and giving the support that you need to be able to get through that journey.
Is that like a 1 hour session type, or how much is each, those sessions?
Yeah, so it depends. It can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And schedule them as 30. They'll go to usually about 45 minutes. If I have time and I'm really digging into someone's situation mentally and emotionally, sometimes those sessions go a little bit longer. So it just kind of depends. But when I am genuine about, giving my clients time, and giving them the help that they need. So I don't get on a call and it's like, well, it's 30 minutes, like, see you later. It's like, if we really need to work on something, then, we're going to
Love it.
work on something. And so, I try to set it up that way so that I have the time to be able to dedicate to my clients and my coaches as well. So,
Excellent. So after with the work you do, have you found that there are a specific, sets that are very common across every all cases of the roots? I mean, I'm assuming that as you dig in more, you're going to find that we all have similar reasons why we go through what we go through, especially mentally.
yeah.
Anything that you want to highlight on that one?
There is a very common theme. And
Okay.
I did not, like I think I mentioned this, I did not expect this when I built my program. I did not expect, like, my program to be all about finding yourself and showing up for yourself. Like, it's truly about building a really deep relationship with yourself internally, to an emotional level, right? That you know how to actually show up for yourself. The common theme of all of the people that I bring into my program is nobody knows how to do it. Everybody's putting themselves on the back burner. We're taking care of everybody else. We're showing up at work. We're overachieving at work. We're trying to please our parents. We're trying to be good enough. We're taking care of our kids. We're doing everything for everybody else. We're super busy, and we're on the back burner. And we've never learned the importance of putting ourselves first. And it's because deep down inside, we've never actually known how to do it. We've never genuinely loved ourselves enough to make ourselves the number one priority.
That because we are trained to do that, like to really, I mean, society has taught us that you're supposed to be good for everybody else, right?
Yep.
And certainly it's frowned upon if you're really just true into yourself. I mean, that's like vanity, you're selfish, you're egoistic. I mean,
Yep.
and a lot of people don't want to fall into that. So I think, and by the way, you're right. I am a big fan of the idea of taking care of yourself first, because you're not good to anyone if you're bad. If this is damage, you're only gonna damage everybody around you, or at least
Yep.
have an impact that is negative across everyone, whether it's at work and stuff. And I think a lot of what you said, that everybody's still trying to figure out, or they haven't been able to figure out, because we're not looking into it. Because difficult to have the discussion with ourselves. And as a matter of fact, the last couple of weeks we had a few shows that touch on this topic, and it's amazing how this thing works. I swear to God, it's not even planned; it just happens. But it all kind of links the same way somehow. But the fact is, we don't do this self-talk. We don't do this self-motivation. We don't look at, what is working here. How can I improve here? You look at everybody else, and you're right. We want to achieve things, but on the depends of who and what. Usually it's your health, your mental health more, and sometimes even physical.
Yep.
A good example is work. And I've stated this a couple of times. Listen, I put in 30 years in corporate. And, as much as I did it because that was my dream, my goal. I wanted to achieve and show that I can do it, and prove to like there was a dream of my mom that for me to make it to a certain level in corporate. But
Yep.
I've done all that, but there's a satisfaction to that. But then only to realize that no matter what you do, for anybody out there, okay, there will be a time where we will part, and that's all there is. It's life. Work, even individuals. I mean, even if you're married, eventually there's a day, if you live long enough, that the two of you are gonna be apart by that, right?
Yep.
Kids eventually gonna go and move on with their lives. Life is gonna continue. The problem is a lot of us get stuck in the cycle. We got time. We got time, and we're gonna do more later when I get a little older. And again, we don't have guarantees that we're going to get older too. And if we get older, are we going to be able to do things the way we are supposed to do them at that age? I mean, there's no guarantee. You did not think that this would have ever happened. No one
Nope.
can ever dream because we don't know the future, right? And we hope for a better future. But our decisions today can, determine how that future is going to look like somehow. We don't
Yep.
know what it is, but we will literally, cause, an effect concept, in there, because whatever we build today can be, a bad thing for us or a good thing for us. But you're right. A lot of us may not take the time to take care of this. Good example. I mean, I know people that don't travel. They don't do anything. They just work, 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 work. I mean,
Yep.
like you cannot. We need to decompress. We need to take time for ourselves. We need to do the outings. We need to do certain things because that's how you kind of get a better life. Now, this show is worldwide, so all cultures are different. We have some common themes, but cultures are, vary from one to the other. In the Western world, specifically in the US, we have this like high pace. As a matter of fact, the story about hurricane is that I come from, an environment in New York City of work ethics. And so I worked in Pennsylvania, and the flow was a little less. So when I used to come into the room, they're like, oh my God, here comes Hurricane H. So that's kind of like the story. But really, we used to a higher pace and faster pace.
Yep.
And I mean, I compare New York to Pennsylvania, but now you go to a different country, that pace is a way different. I mean, the scale is different. You go to Europe, people take the time. They got a couple hours in the day. They got more vacation time. They take their siesta. They do things. They hang out. We don't have that. We eat on the go. We eat junk. We don't have time to go to the gym. We don't have time to do this. We do this. Education is rough because now you're paying for this education that is expensive, and you got to make, you can't fail. All
Yep.
these things are just meant to actually destroy us slowly but surely. And some of us don't make it to a better place because we destroy ourselves literally. I mean, it's like having a car that you are literally, I mean, this body is just a machine that's operating, and you beat it early on, it's over. You're not gonna last with this body long enough. We need to do better than that. So thank you for sharing that as for our audiences, because I think anyone that's watching and listening, doesn't matter what part of the world, we have to be able to relate to this discussion because it is real. We need to take care of ourselves while be with the hope that we can do better for the others. I mean, that old mask thing in the plane does apply. You
Yep.
can't help no one unless you got oxygen to yourself, right? So
Absolutely.
wow, that is an interesting, because your answer is really the key to everybody's health and well-being is
Yep.
really take care of yourself.
100%. And you think, it's as simple as that. And people are like, I can't do it.
But simple things sometimes are more difficult to come, about in our minds, right? We can't handle them sometimes. It's amazing. They work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well. So. Thank you so much, Whitney. I mean, this your story, and you truly, again, I meant it when I said it. You're an inspiration, and you're giving hope to a lot of people, and definitely, I hope that people can reach out to you because, first of all, you can relate to this whole thing yourself because you've gone through difficult times, years and years, and you can help people really not even get through that. If you feel that you have some problems and you're not sure, you do reach out. Whitney can assist. Reach out to her. You can have a whole happy living, style as easy as 16 weeks if you apply, of course. And that's the other thing. Now, do you believe that people have to have the will to make a difference? Because if they don't have that, or the drive, it's not going to work.
Yep. You got to want it. You got to want it. And that's just, if you have the desire to do it, you have desire and you make the decision that you're ready to change. Yes, you can have, us, a coach, mentor, help you, right? And kind of pull you along until you really get the results where you're like, yes, you're motivating yourself, you're keeping yourself accountable. But you do have to make that first decision of like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to change. I'm ready to do this.
It's amazing because again, I've had many, many, many shows, different level topics, whatever, but they all have one thing that comes again and again and again, which is, having a mentor and a coach in life.
Yep.
Even the best people, they do have mentors and coaches that guide them. So we all have our own abilities, but sometimes you need someone to bounce off to get some stuff. And, that is not a bad thing. I have people that I reach out to. You are, a resource, and many other people have resources. But don't think that you're alone in this world. And that's the other thing. There are friends that can help. There are people, there's, specialists, and experts that can do this, but just don't be alone. I think that's the problem. And people just think that I got this. And I'm not sure if we all got this.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, Whitney, we've covered quite a bit of ground. We exceeded an hour. Is there anything that you want to just leave our audiences with, like, as a final message to our folks watching and listening right now?
I mean, I guess my final message to people is just a message of encouragement. It's not easy to change. And there's always going to be challenges in life. There's always going to be setbacks. It's always going to feel like, now's not the right time. I don't have the time to take care of myself right now. And the reality is I'm sure you've heard it all the times that we make time. And it is true, right? I always, I'll always have people, and in my program, I have my clients write out their priorities. What are your priorities, number 1 to 5, right? And they'll write out their priorities and then realize that they're never on the list. And so what I would encourage anyone listening today, I would encourage you to write out your priorities, number 1 to 5, but you are number 1. You and your health are number 1. And then you filter everything else in. And if you can make yourself a priority, take care of your health, you're going to have the energy and the stamina and the ability to show up so much better for everything else in your life. It is possible, and you deserve it. You are important, and you should be number 1.
Now, when you said that about everybody writing their priorities, I had to think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Really, you made me think. I mean, it's as crazy as it sounds. Like you don't think about it, like in that order. Like you think time, I want to do this. I've my business, my health, but you don't structure it like me first. And that's amazing. Like you don't think about it, but it's a simple thing. And thank you. It's a great exercise. If you're watching and listening, doesn't matter when you get this show, just write it down. Like my priorities are now. Maybe do it before you hear the last part, but that's okay. If you can write you as being the number 1, that's really goal number 1 achieved. And now you just have to figure out the 4, and really that's all there is. Wow, so that's pretty powerful. Thank you so much. That's actually, I love that. That's an easy way to think about things and just kind of put them in perspective. And that's the other thing. Like if you don't see it, sometimes it's not there. But if you write it down, then now you're accountable to those things.
Yep, 100%. It's the first step.
Well, listen, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for taking the time. I know your time is valuable and you need to have the energy and all the stuff. So being on this show with us is really taking the toll. And, and I appreciate your time and your health and everything that you're doing out there. And like I said, you are an inspiration to me personally and to everybody that's watching and listening to this particular show. Keep up the great work, and certainly we'll have folks, connect with you through your site. And if I'm not mistaken, learn my whole and happylife.com, right? That's the site. All right. So we'll have the link there, and that's about it. Folks, Hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Our guest, plenty of good stuff that we've gotten today, and definitely do right by you. That's all there is. I'm your host, Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic. Bye for now.